before the final note fades, before the tears dry, stay with me, because by the end of this story, you might hear your own heartbeat a little louder, and you might remember a promise you once made to yourself. If this story moves you even a little, take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. It helps these stories reach the people who need them most, maybe even someone who feels like hope has slipped through their fingers tonight. The lights were too bright for a room that held so much fear. She stood alone at the center of the stage, a small figure beneath a sky of spotlights, while millions watched from living rooms, hospital beds, and phones held tightly in shaking hands. Some tuned in for entertainment. Some out of boredom. Some because they were running from their own pain. No one knew that in just a few minutes, a song would reach through the screen and gently grab their souls. Her name was Nightbirde, and before she sang a single word, she smiled. It wasn't the kind of smile you practice in mirrors. It was fragile and brave, like someone who had learned how to stand up while carrying invisible weight. When the judges asked how she was doing, she answered honestly. Not dramatically. Not with self-pity. Just honestly. She spoke of sickness, of odds, of nights that felt endless. And then she said something that landed softly but powerfully: you can't wait until life isn't hard anymore before you decide to be happy. Somewhere, a woman on her couch paused her scrolling. A man who hadn't cried in years felt his chest tighten. A teenager who felt unseen leaned closer to the screen. The world didn't know it yet, but it was about to listen in a different way. The first note came like a whisper. Not loud. Not perfect. But real. Her voice carried cracks, and instead of breaking the song, they became part of it. She sang about pain, about dreams that felt delayed, about learning to bloom in places no one expected. It wasn't just a performance. It felt like a conversation, like she was sitting across from you, looking you in the eye, saying, I know you're tired. I know you're scared. But you're still here. As the song unfolded, the room changed. Judges forgot their pens. Cameras caught trembling lips and shining eyes. And beyond that stage, something even bigger was happening. People began to see their own battles reflected in her lyrics. The cancer patient who felt like a statistic. The single parent holding everything together with hope and coffee. The dreamer who had been told not now too many times. Nightbirde wasn't singing at them. She was singing with them. When the last note fell into silence, it didn't feel like an ending. It felt like a beginning. The applause was thunderous, but what mattered more were the quiet moments afterward, the ones where people sat still, letting the message sink in. That night, searches spiked. Comments flooded in. Messages were sent to old friends. People wrote things like, I needed this, and I'm fighting too, and thank you for reminding me I'm alive. But the story didn't stop on that stage. Behind the scenes, her life was still hard. Treatments didn't magically disappear. Pain didn't politely step aside because the world had applauded. There were hospital rooms where the walls felt too close, days when hope felt heavy, and moments when the future was a question mark. Yet she kept writing. She kept smiling when she could. She kept choosing joy not as denial, but as defiance. Her song traveled further than she ever imagined. It played in cars on the way to chemotherapy. It echoed softly in bedrooms at 2 a.m. It became a soundtrack for courage. And in that way, she was no longer alone. Millions carried her words with them, repeating them like quiet prayers. It's okay to be broken. It's okay to bloom anyway. Before she passed away, Nightbirde had already changed the world. Not with fame, but with honesty. Not with perfection, but with presence. She showed us that impact isn't measured in years, but in depth. That a single moment of truth can ripple outward, touching lives you'll never meet. And maybe that's why her story still matters so much. Because it asks us a question we can't ignore. What song are you carrying inside you? What truth have you been waiting to share once life gets easier? What if easier never comes, but meaning does? If you're watching this right now, there's a reason. Maybe you're standing in your own spotlight, afraid to speak. Maybe you feel like time is against you. Or maybe you just needed to be reminded that your pain doesn't disqualify you from joy. Let this be your sign. Don't wait. Sing anyway. Love anyway. Hope anyway. If this story touched you, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. Share it with someone who might need it tonight. And remember, long after the music stops, the message remains: you don't have to wait for the storm to pass to decide you are still worthy of light. Before you scroll away, pause for just a heartbeat, because what you're about to hear isn't just a story, it's a reminder of why your breath still matters today. Stay until the end, because the final message might be the one you didn't know you were waiting for. And if this story touches your heart even a little, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps these stories reach people who feel like they're fighting alone. The stage was silent, but the silence was loud. It carried expectation, judgment, curiosity, and millions of untold stories sitting behind glowing screens across the world. When she walked out, she didn't look like someone about to shake the world. She looked like someone who had already been shaken by it. Fragile, gentle, yet somehow grounded. Her name was Nightbirde, and in that moment, she carried more than a microphone, she carried her truth. When she spoke, her voice didn't ask for sympathy. It offered honesty. She shared that her body was fighting a battle most people only whisper about. Statistics said one thing. Doctors said another. But her eyes said something completely different. They said, "I'm still here." That single sentence alone could have ended the audition, because it pierced deeper than any song. Yet she smiled, not because life was easy, but because she had chosen not to surrender her joy to fear. Then the music began. Her voice wasn't flawless, and that's what made it unforgettable. Each lyric felt like it had been lived, not written. She sang about pain that doesn't disappear, about dreams that feel postponed, about choosing happiness in the middle of uncertainty. With every note, walls came down. People watching forgot where they were. A mother listening while folding laundry stopped moving. A young man battling depression sat up in bed. A woman receiving treatment in a hospital room closed her eyes and let the song wash over her like a quiet promise. The judges weren't just listening, they were witnessing something sacred. This wasn't about winning a competition. It was about survival with grace. It was about standing in front of the world and saying, "I'm afraid, but I'm still singing." And somehow, that bravery gave everyone else permission to feel their own pain without shame. When the final note faded, something unusual happened. The applause was thunderous, but it felt secondary. What truly mattered were the tears, the hands over hearts, the realization that life doesn't wait for us to feel ready. In that moment, Nightbirde didn't just perform, she connected millions of strangers through vulnerability. But life didn't suddenly turn gentle after that night. Behind the scenes, she returned to hospital rooms and long treatments. Some days were heavier than others. Some mornings came with hope, others with exhaustion. Yet her message never changed. She continued to remind the world that happiness isn't the absence of pain, it's the decision to keep living fully in spite of it. Her song became an anthem not because it promised miracles, but because it told the truth. People began sharing their own stories. Comment sections turned into support groups. Strangers encouraged strangers. "I'm fighting cancer too. I thought I was alone. This saved me tonight." Her voice traveled farther than she ever physically could, echoing in places where hope had grown quiet. Before she passed away, Nightbirde had already accomplished something rare. She reminded the world that meaning doesn't require a long life, only a brave one. She taught us that we don't need permission to bloom, even in the darkest soil. That joy can exist alongside grief, and strength can whisper instead of shout. And now, her story lives on, not as a tragedy, but as a legacy. If you're listening to this and your life feels uncertain, let her story hold your hand for a moment. If you're waiting for the right time to chase your dream, to forgive, to speak, to live, remember her words. You don't have to wait for the pain to end to decide you still deserve happiness. If this story moved you, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. Share it with someone who might need hope today. And carry this with you as you go. Your voice matters, your story matters, and even now, especially now, you are still allowed to sing. Before the last second of this video ends, something might change inside you. So stay with me, because this isn't just a story about a song or a stage, it's about the quiet war people fight every day and the courage it takes to keep going. If this story touches your heart, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps spread hope to someone who may be listening in the dark right now. The room was filled with anticipation, but no one could have predicted what was about to happen. When she stepped onto the stage, she didn't arrive with fireworks or confidence sharpened by certainty. She arrived with honesty. Nightbirde stood there not as a contestant chasing applause, but as a human being carrying pain, faith, fear, and a fragile kind of hope. Millions were watching, but in that moment, it felt as though she was standing face to face with each person individually. When she spoke about her life, her words were simple, almost gentle. She didn't dramatize her illness or ask the world to feel sorry for her. She simply told the truth. Her body was fighting cancer. The future was unclear. Time felt precious. And yet, she smiled. Not the kind of smile that pretends everything is fine, but the kind that says, "I'm still choosing to be here." That smile alone made people lean closer to their screens. Then the music began. Her voice rose softly, like a confession. It wasn't polished perfection, it was real. Every lyric sounded like it had been written in the middle of sleepless nights and whispered prayers. She sang about pain that lingers, about dreams that feel delayed, about learning to be happy even when life refuses to be kind. Each note felt like it was reaching into the hearts of strangers and gently saying, "You're not weak for feeling this way." Across the world, something extraordinary happened. A man who had buried his grief under routine felt tears he hadn't allowed himself in years. A young woman who felt invisible felt seen. A patient sitting in a hospital bed held onto the words like a lifeline. Nightbirde's song didn't just entertain, it connected. It reminded people that brokenness doesn't make you unworthy, and suffering doesn't erase beauty. The judges were no longer evaluating a performance. They were witnessing bravery. The kind of bravery that doesn't shout but stands still and tells the truth. When the final note faded, the silence carried weight. Then came the applause, not just for the song, but for the spirit behind it. In that moment, Nightbirde didn't win a round, she changed lives. But when the lights dimmed and the cameras turned away, her battle continued. She returned to hospital rooms and long days filled with uncertainty. Some days were hopeful, others overwhelming. Pain didn't disappear because the world had listened. Yet she continued to share her message. She continued to choose joy not because life was easy, but because joy became her rebellion against despair. She showed the world that happiness isn't something you wait for at the end of suffering, it's something you practice in the middle of it. Her audition spread like wildfire. People shared it not because it was viral, but because it was honest. Comment sections turned into testimonies. Strangers encouraged one another. "I'm fighting too. This gave me strength. I thought I was alone." Her voice became a companion for those walking through their hardest seasons. Before she passed away, Nightbirde had already left something eternal behind. Not fame. Not trophies. But permission. Permission to feel pain without giving up hope. Permission to dream even when the odds say otherwise. Permission to live fully, even when time feels uncertain. Her story doesn't end in sadness, it ends in meaning. And now, this story reaches you. Maybe you're tired. Maybe you're waiting for life to get easier before you start living again. Maybe you've been telling yourself, once this is over, then I'll be happy. Let Nightbirde's message meet you right where you are. You don't have to wait. Your life still matters today. Your joy still counts today. Your voice still deserves to be heard today. If this story moved you, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. Share it with someone who might need strength right now. And remember this as you go forward, even in the middle of pain, even when the night feels endless, you are still allowed to bloom before this story ends. You may realize it was never really about her, it was about you. So stay with me until the very last moment, because what unfolds here has a way of reaching places words usually can't. And if this story touches your heart, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. That small action helps keep these stories alive for someone who might be holding on by a thread right now. The world was noisy that night, but the stage felt strangely quiet. Lights hovered overhead like distant stars, and a single microphone waited at the center. When she walked out, there was no dramatic entrance, no confident stride that screamed certainty. There was only a woman with gentle eyes and a soft smile, carrying a story most people would be too afraid to tell. Her name was Nightbirde, and in that moment, no one knew they were about to witness something that would outlive applause. She spoke before she sang, and her words landed softly but deeply. She talked about illness, about time, about uncertainty. Not as a victim, but as a truth-teller. She didn't ask for pity. She didn't dress her pain up in drama. She simply stood there and admitted that life had not gone as planned. And yet, there she was, standing, breathing, choosing to show up anyway. That honesty alone shifted something in the room. When the music began, it felt like the world leaned in. Her voice wasn't loud. It didn't demand attention. It invited it. Each lyric felt like a page torn from a private journal, written during long nights when sleep wouldn't come and hope felt fragile. She sang about pain that doesn't disappear, about dreams that feel postponed, about learning how to be happy even when life refuses to be gentle. There were cracks in her voice, but instead of weakening the song, they made it stronger. They made it human. Somewhere, a man sitting alone in his car felt his throat tighten. A woman battling her own illness closed her eyes and let the words wash over her. A young person who felt invisible felt seen for the first time in a long while. Nightbirde wasn't performing for millions, she was connecting with individuals, one heart at a time. As the song unfolded, something extraordinary happened. People stopped judging. They stopped comparing. They stopped waiting for perfection. They simply listened. The judges weren't thinking about votes or technique anymore. They were witnessing courage, the kind that doesn't roar, but stands quietly and tells the truth. When the final note faded, the silence felt sacred. And then came the applause. Not just loud, but emotional. It wasn't applause for a great performance alone, it was applause for resilience, for honesty, for choosing joy in the face of fear. In that moment, Nightbirde didn't just pass an audition. She shifted the emotional weight of a room, then a nation, then the world. But the stage was only a moment. Life continued afterward. Behind the scenes, her days were still filled with hospital rooms, treatments, and uncertainty. Pain didn't magically disappear because the world had listened. Some days were heavy. Some days felt unfair. Yet she kept writing. She kept smiling when she could. She kept reminding others and herself that happiness isn't something you earn after suffering. It's something you choose, even while suffering still exists. Her audition spread everywhere. Not because it was flashy, but because it was real. People shared it with messages like, "This saved me today," and "I'm fighting too," and "I finally feel understood." Comment sections became safe places. Strangers comforted strangers. Her song became a companion for those walking through their darkest seasons. Before she passed away, Nightbirde had already changed millions of lives. Not by denying pain, but by standing inside it and still choosing hope. She showed the world that impact isn't measured by how long you live, but by how deeply you love, how honestly you speak, and how bravely you show up. Her story doesn't end with loss. It continues in every person who decides not to give up. In every heart that chooses joy as an act of courage. In every quiet moment when someone whispers, "If she could sing through that, maybe I can keep going too." And now, this story has reached you. Maybe you're tired. Maybe you're waiting for life to get easier before you allow yourself to dream again. Maybe you've been telling yourself, "Once this is over, then I'll live." Let her message meet you where you are. You don't have to wait for the storm to pass to decide you're worthy of happiness. You don't have to be unbroken to be valuable. You don't have to be fearless to be brave. If this story moved you, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. Share it with someone who might need hope today. And carry this with you as you go, even in the middle of pain, even when the night feels endless, you are still allowed to bloom and your song still matters. Before you decide to leave, let me ask you something. What if the next few minutes remind you why you're still here? Stay until the very end, because this story doesn't just unfold, it stays with you. And if it moves you, even quietly, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. That simple act helps this message reach someone who may desperately need it tonight. The moment she stepped onto the stage, time seemed to slow down. The lights were bright, the audience was waiting, and millions of eyes were fixed on a woman who looked gentle but carried something heavy inside her. She didn't walk like someone chasing fame. She walked like someone who had already faced loss and still chose to show up. Her name was Nightbirde, and in that instant, no one could have imagined how deeply she was about to touch the world. When she spoke, her voice was calm, almost soft. She talked about illness, about uncertainty, about living with a clock that no one else could see ticking. There was no anger in her words. No bitterness. Just truth. And somehow, that honesty felt braver than any loud declaration. When she smiled, it wasn't because life was kind to her. It was because she refused to let pain decide who she would be. Then the music began, and something shifted. Her voice carried emotion that couldn't be rehearsed. Every lyric felt like it had been lived through, not imagined. She sang about broken dreams, about learning to stand in the middle of fear, about choosing happiness when tomorrow isn't promised. Her voice trembled at times, but instead of weakening the song, it gave it power. It sounded like hope that had been tested and survived. Across the world, people stopped what they were doing. A father sat down heavily on the edge of his bed. A young woman struggling silently wiped tears from her face. Someone sitting alone in a hospital room turned the volume up just a little more. Nightbirde wasn't just singing, she was speaking directly to the quiet places inside people that words rarely reach. The judges watched, stunned. They weren't listening for perfection anymore. They were listening for truth. And when the final note faded into silence, it felt like the air itself was holding its breath. The applause that followed wasn't just loud, it was emotional. It was gratitude. It was recognition. It was millions of hearts saying, "We hear you." But the story didn't end when the lights dimmed. After the stage, life continued to test her. Hospital visits returned. Treatments continued. Some days were filled with hope, others with exhaustion and pain. Yet she kept sharing her message. She kept reminding the world that joy isn't the absence of suffering, it's the decision not to surrender to it. She showed that happiness can exist alongside fear, and meaning can grow even in the darkest seasons. Her audition spread everywhere, not because it was dramatic, but because it was real. People shared it with captions like, "This gave me strength," and "I'm not alone anymore," and "I needed this today." Strangers connected through comments. People who had never met found comfort in each other. Her song became more than music, it became a lifeline. Before she passed away, Nightbirde had already done something extraordinary. She reminded the world that life's value isn't measured in how long it lasts, but in how deeply it's lived. She proved that even when the future is uncertain, your voice still matters. Your joy still matters. Your presence still matters. Her story lives on in every person who chooses to keep going when it feels impossible. In every heart that decides to hope again. In every quiet moment when someone whispers, "If she could smile through that, maybe I can take one more step." And now, this story reaches you. Maybe you're tired. Maybe you're waiting for things to get better before you allow yourself to feel happy again. Maybe you've been putting your life on pause, telling yourself, "When this is over, then I'll live." Let Nightbirde's message meet you right here. You don't have to wait. You don't have to be fearless. You don't have to be healed to be whole. If this story touched you, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. Share it with someone who might need hope today. And remember this as you move forward, even in the middle of pain, even when the night feels endless, your story is still unfolding, and your song is still worth singing.